Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, welcome to Friday's College Football Basketball Blitz on Sidelines. Rob Browne here with you. Got a great show in store today because we're going to start off batting in the leadoff spot. Great one. Alabama Sports Writer of the Year, Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, will join us. Following Jason, Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, checks in. Well, in the college football scene. Hour number 2, we'll go to the Texas duo of Bo Carter, formerly SID at Mississippi State, the Big 12 office for a long time, now writer for the National Football Foundation and the Baseball Writers of America. Also, Ken Capps checks in, Football Writers Association of America from Dallas, and we will be talking college football. It's going to be like when the locusts and the cicadas start just going at night in the summer when they come in here. College football and some basketball mixed in here over the next 2 hours. And always listen to us live, www.sidelines.live. And, of course, if you miss it, check us out on our website or go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park over in Atlanta, and Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, part of Radio Alabama, headquartered in the marble capital of the world, Sylacauga, Alabama. And follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live. Let's get going. Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers in your 23rd year covering the Tigers, all sports, recruiting, and just one of the best writers you'll find anywhere. And Jason, again, thanks for taking time to join us here on Sidelines. Let's get a couple of things real quick. Your takeaway from what Hugh Freeze did in the few weeks that he had. We, of course, during Christmas and New Year's, it was just a lot going on and a lot not going on. But it seemed like Auburn had a closed for business sign in the front door, front window of the football operations facility for the last 2 years. And now it's reopened. And in 3 weeks' time, a lot happened with Hugh Freeze and this staff. Elaborate.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It started changing when Cadillac Williams and the interim guys kind of took over. You could feel it even starting then, but the job they did in finishing off the class, building some momentum with a couple of transfers before Christmas. They continued that momentum here in this short time already by they've already had 5 or 6 guys on campus in 2 days. Could have that many or more on campus in the next couple of days. And this is the short visit window, before the spring. So big time now for them. But yeah, I mean, you can feel the difference in everything surrounding the program right now, in my opinion. A lot more energy, enthusiasm, and I think you can sense it from the fan base that they feel like there's a sense of something to look forward to right now. And that hasn't been the case for a little while anyway.
Yeah. And Jason, early on, I talked to you and Mark Murphy and the people that I trust, just like nobody else when it comes to Auburn. And I asked about recruiting, and it was like, well, I'm not sure these guys get it. I don't understand how they couldn't get it. It's kind of like, going to the beach and going down on 30A, and there's the Gulf of Mexico, and not understanding that you need to get in the water and enjoy yourself. That blew my mind. But Hugh Freeze, we know he's a great recruiter. He's high energy. Cadillac, Zach Etheridge. Talk about the staff that he kept and this new staff, because I don't think a lot of people are very familiar with some of the guys that came from Liberty, but they're soon going to be household names, at least among Auburn fans.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really intriguing mix, the staff that Hugh Freeze has put together. You have to start with a couple of very experienced coordinators in Philip Montgomery and Ron Roberts, 2 guys that have been around football for a while, have been successful. And so I think you look at the experienced veteran guys who kind of lead the way on those sides of the ball. And then defensively, you bring in another veteran guy in Weston McGriff. So you have another veteran guy that's a recruiter. But Zach Etheridge, obviously, still here, and a guy that did a great job in the interim. He's done a really good job of coaching defensive backs. So you put him and Weston McGriff together, and I think I think it's a dynamic recruiting duo for Auburn secondary guys back there. And I think that's already shown in just a short time what they were able to do at the end of this early cycle in recruiting. But Jeremy Garrett, defensive line coach, I think did a really good job at Liberty. You look at him; he's up for one of the top defensive line coaches in the country, and just a young guy. But he's from Mississippi, knows the South, played at Ole Miss, and so I think that's a big deal there. And Josh Aldridge is a linebacker coach that obviously familiar with the South as well. Heard great things about him from high school coaches that have dealt with him, talking about him as a recruiter and just as relating to people. And so that's important. And then when you look on the offensive side of the ball, and you got Cadillac Williams still there, bring Marcus Davis back to Auburn, who one of the top young wide receiver coaches in the country, and Auburn connection or not, that guy's a guy that's a rising star, I believe, in the profession. But Jake Thornton on the offensive line, you look at him, and man, the job he did at Ole Miss, already putting together some pieces for this Auburn offensive line. They've done more in a month and a half than Auburn has done in 4 years in recruiting on the offensive line. I mean, there's no other way around it. And so I think the pieces in place on this staff are intriguing. I think it's some young, energetic guys that are good football coaches to go along with some veteran guys, and then Hugh Freeze, the guys that understands how to put it together. So the interesting thing about this is, normally now you would have had, they've had the time to start talking football and start doing some of those things that they can't have any time to do that right now because of the transfer portal window. Then you're going to have an evaluation period in the month of January heading into the second signing day. Whether or not you sign anybody or not, this is an opportunity to go on the road and get in high schools and do some of those things again. And so it's going to be a quick turnaround after all the dust settles to try to figure out, kind of how you're going to go with the spring practice and kind of what that's going to look like.
What are you hearing or yourself about Auburn in the portal? I mean, again, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but if it's there, you got to use it to your advantage every chance that you get. Yeah.
I think they've done pretty good job so far. Obviously, when, just yesterday, getting a guy like Gunnar Britton, offensive tackle from Western Kentucky. I mean, we talked about the need on the offensive line. So now got a couple of offensive linemen out of the portal. Probably could use at least one more, maybe two more of those guys, just because of the lack of experience, especially at the tackle position. But Damian George also recently visited the Alabama transfer from Richmond, Texas. And so you start looking at they're getting some guys on campus, offensive line, defensive line, pass rush guys are the key. But, had wide receiver visitor yesterday, a linebacker visitor, and DeMario Tolan, the kid that looked at Auburn pretty heavily before signing with LSU and now is back in the portal. And so he was on campus on Thursday. So they're getting guys on campus. They're giving themselves an opportunity. And this is a quick turnaround here where you get guys that can take visits, but the visits end in 2 days. That's it. That's the window's closed for as far as visits. And for Auburn class to start on January the 11th, and then the drop dead day is the 18th. So they got really till the 18th to get guys in school on campus, and so they're still here. Just under a couple of weeks left to see what this roster could look like potentially heading into the spring.
Yeah, it's so different. I mean, in the past, you and I and Mark Murphy, Philip Marshall, anybody, you could almost go 2 or 3 deep on the roster. Now it changes really fast. And you see what a program like TCU did using the portal with Sonny Dykes coming in. And a lot of people picked them to win maybe 3 games, 4 games this year. We all know they're going to play for the national championship Monday against Georgia. There are people writing that Auburn should follow that example of TCU. Are you seeing Auburn following that pattern of what TCU did, or who's another school maybe that Auburn's trying to pattern their portal search after?
Yeah, I think in year one you have to follow that pattern if you want to have a chance to compete right away, which is what TCU did. I still don't think it's a recipe for long-term success. But I do think you look at it and it's a way to get back in there especially if you got a chance to add some pieces. And TCU, this is a team that had some pieces in place, and they've got a lot of veteran guys on this team that they added some key players to on both sides of the ball, which has been a big deal for them. But I think that's, if you're Auburn, that's what you'd like to do, is go, look, we like to supplement this roster as much as we can to help it out in year one. But I think you look and see what they've done from the high school recruiting ranks, knowing that that's still going to be the bread and butter. I don't think you can turn into Jackie Sherrill, Mississippi State, and live from junior college and expect that to be a recipe for success. I think the same thing for the portal, because it's a difficult thing to get it right. TCU got it right. It's just as easy to get it wrong. And when it does, it sets you back doubly because of the lack of high school recruiting and development as well.
Yeah. I think there are programs too. You have turnover every year, 5, 6, 7 assistant coaches year after year. That can catch up with you, and you don't have enough guys that were around when things were really good. And then you can delegate too much authority. With the portal, look at Georgia. And I don't think Kirby Smart was saying he doesn't like the portal, but the core of this team that's playing for the national championship is guys that they recruited. There are some, but very few. So it's sort of a 180, a polar opposite of what TCU has. But I still expect that's a 13-point line. I think Georgia, they're going to have to play a full 60, because TCU, all they do is come from behind. And they've done it 13 out of 14 times they've won. And in the majority of their games, they've been playing from behind. And I agree with you about the high schools. How is there kind of a feeling of remorse, regret on the part of a lot of the Auburn coaches that are still on the staff, knowing that, as we chronicled, and you did so well, there were 22 4-stars in the state of Alabama high school this class, and 7 5-stars, especially Quay Russo and Smith and Montgomery. Auburn tried. I mean, it takes time to build relationships with these guys. But all that being said, it was a generationally incredible year for talent in Alabama, and Auburn's NIL collective is ramping up. Talk about how all that's playing into what Auburn. Is there much left for them to get in the first week of February?
No, there's not. There's not. To be quite honest, I just don't know. I don't know where you go. You look at the state of Alabama, and I'm down to mid 40s, and everybody has already signed from the state of Alabama. I mean, that's the thing. There's just not many guys left, especially guys that you need. And when you look, and they did a pretty good job of getting in on a guy like Keldrick Falk and doing some of the things they did, but that's still none of the top 10 players in the state of Alabama that Auburn signed in this class. You go to Jeremiah Cobb at 14, Sylvester Smith at 16, which is another late addition. So two of the, you're sitting here not too long ago, and out of the top 22 players in Alabama, Auburn would have had 1. They wound up having 3, which is better than expected going into this thing, like I said 6 weeks ago, but still not what you're looking for in a really strong class to be, the other in-state school, and to only have 3 of the top 22 players in your own state. That's not a recipe for success. I keep saying that word, but I think Hugh Freeze, they understand that and know that the number would not look like that if those guys had been here for a full year. And so that's the goal now is you look at it and go and start going into 2024 and beyond. And I mean, it's another really good year in the state of Alabama. It's not going to be as top heavy when you start talking about it, but that's, this is the opportunity now to start doing some of those things, to start having a junior day here later this month. And you look, and I think the number right now in Alabama from 4-star, there's 21 4-stars, no 5-stars yet in the state, but there's 21 4-star prospects already in Alabama for 2024. So another really good class, talented and deep again. And so the opportunity is going to be there for them to, kind of be on equal footing, so to speak, with this group and have time to recruit them.
Well, Jason, you had said 2 years ago you felt like the state of Alabama and high school football is where the state of Georgia was 10 years ago. So let's say this year there's 140, 150 kids out of Alabama high schools that signed Division I scholarships. Georgia will probably have about 250. There's plenty to go around. But I'm with you. I mean, I've watched Hugh Freeze since his days at Briarcrest in Memphis. The guy can recruit. He's just high energy. He is what you got to have to compete. And I think Georgia and Alabama, the last couple of years, the mice will play when the cats are away. And now the Tiger is back out on the prowl. He's come back home, and you got Hugh Freeze. How big is, again, I don't like NIL for the sake of, you don't pay people on the first of the month if they're in the commission sales business because you like what they're wearing or you like the way, the truck they drive or whatever. They got to earn it. And it blew up, in my opinion, in Texas A&M's face because they put the cart before the horse. And I think those kids got there and thought they're going to get all that money up front, and they didn't. That's why you got a mass exodus coming out of there. But is from what you are hearing and what you know, and we're going to take a break. I want you to address this when we come back. I know NILs are a big deal. Ole Miss, Yancey Porter told us this week, in the 3-week flirtation with Kiffin and Auburn with Kiffin, they gained 5,100 new members to the Ole Miss, the Grove Collective, and $10.8 million new dollars. I'd like to talk about what's going on with Auburn's NIL Collective, also Ever to Conquer, another group that's out there. A lot of things are changing, and the freeze warning is in full effect. We'll talk about it more with Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers right after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers. And Jason, Mark Emmert, previous president, who's about to leave of the NCAA, he was Pontius Pilate with NIL. For years, it was talked about, and then they just threw it out there and said, y'all figure it out. And it is, it's a mess. But it's something right now that's there, in my opinion, in my other career, financial advisor for 32 years. The free market will work this stuff out. But do you get the sense that Auburn has really begun to embrace NIL and will use it in every possible way with Hugh Freeze and this staff?
Yeah, I think Auburn's embraced it. The question is that do you embrace it more than anybody else? Or like I've said the entire time, I think NIL is going to be like the football facility. It's going to get you in the door. And it's going to give you an opportunity. You still got to go sell it. You still got to recruit it. So to me, it's not a game changer unless you flat don't have it. Auburn's got it, but so do a lot of other teams.
Yeah.
You still got to go recruit. You still got to win those battles but you just now, if you have it, then you give yourself an opportunity. It's not going to be something that's any different, in my opinion, than most others. You mentioned Ole Miss. Everybody else has kind of seen it now. How you choose to use it, maybe in some it's not, I won't say incentivized deals, but maybe like the thing that Auburn's done now with offensive line, where with Baumhauer's kind of a connection. Maybe that's a little tweak where you can maybe it helps out doing some things, but in the end, it's going to come down to, okay, can you give it to the NFL? Winning games, playing for championships. Those are still things that's going to matter a whole lot, and that's where Auburn has to get to then make NIL playoff. You see it, Texas A&M, Miami, they're playing with. I don't know that Auburn's going to get there. I don't know that anybody else is either, to what they're playing with monetarily. But if they don't win games, then it's not going to matter. And you saw it last year. You can do all those things you want to, and then you win 4 or 5 games. Sooner or later, guys go, I don't really care about that. Or the guys you're getting because of that aren't the kind of guys that are going to go win championships. And so it kind of plays, to me, a little devil's advocate sometimes too. So Auburn's there. They've got the resources and the ability to go toe-to-toe with people right now and make it work. But again, you still got to go sell your program. You still got to win, because it's going to be it's still a recruiting battle and a recruiting pitch. I
agree. And I think in the old days, they gave a bounty when you signed up. I think the war between the states, you would get a bounty to enlist, and they called them bounty jumpers. They'd sign up in one state and go to another and keep going. I think that's what happened with A&M. It was all about the money and not about A&M and that culture and buying into what Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M are trying to do. And you saw it. You had a lot of selfish players that didn't put out. And I think you're exactly right. It's how you use it. Because if you're an offensive lineman, and you've chronicled this better than anybody, Auburn, now that it's going to change, it's already changing. But the last 4 years, you're right. They basically did nothing for offensive linemen. It's kind of like, I can't remember anything even remotely close to that. But yeah, you're right. Auburn has a new football facility, but I read yesterday where the University of Miami, the U, is going to do what, a $100 million football only facility. So, I mean, and they've notoriously been tighter than a clam with lockjaw when it comes to spending money on athletic facilities. All right, Jason, want to talk now about Auburn basketball. Bruce Pearl, in 8 years, been to 3 NCAA tournaments. He had a major rebuild taken over from – I always thought Tony Barbee was the worst coaching hire in Auburn history in any sport since Auburn began playing sports. It's not even close anymore after Potato Head. But and Auburn, they were going to the NCAA tournament in March of 2020 after that beatdown 84-64 up in Knoxville against Tennessee. And then, they let the air out of the balloon. Auburn basketball, you lose Jabari Smith, you lose Walker Kessler, 2 first-round picks. It's hard to replace those guys, but what do you see happening with this Auburn team? Guard play is an issue, but what about your guys like Johan Traore? Are they going to – last year Jabari Smith was a 5-star, and so is Traore, but night and day difference in my opinion.
Yeah, all 5 stars aren't made equal, and one of those guys had a dad that played in the NBA and had been playing basketball and working on his skill set his entire life.
Yeah. The
other one athletically is probably more gifted, but just hadn't very much basketball experience in Traore, a guy that I think has a bright future, but he just wasn't as skilled coming in as Jabari Smith. And so that's the difference. That's a huge difference there. I think you look at Janai Broome is a different type of player, but is a much better offensive player than Walker Kessler was. And this team's still pretty good defensively in terms of blocking shots in the paint. The difference is that they can put the ball in the basket from the perimeter. And that's where the loss of Jabari Smith has been really vital. Not only his shooting, but the things he did to draw the defense to him. And it's forced these other guys to take on a bigger role and don't know that that's what they're suited for. You look at them and I don't see a guy that says, okay, that guy's going to go get us 18 tonight. Jabari Smith was that guy.
Yeah.
This team doesn't have that guy, and it's hard in basketball when you don't have that guy. If you don't have a guy that you know can go get you a basket, then it's very difficult. And right now, that's where Auburn is. And I think Chance Westry has a chance to be that guy, but he just got to get back into the flow. And I don't know if Bruce Pearl gets to that point, if he says, "Oh, look, we're just going to start riding with him and giving him more minutes and take the lumps that come along with it." But I feel like he's the guy that gives you the most opportunities in the mid-range game, shooting, scoring, to potentially be that guy. We've seen more Trey Donaldson. And, does he shuffle things around and maybe move Wendell Green to the six-man role and bring him off the bench a little bit to take some pressure off? I don't know. But he's been a guy that's been loyal to his guys. He believes in those guys. But, for Auburn to play well, it starts with defense. Yeah. But for your defense to play well, for Auburn's system, you got to put the ball in the basket because you can't press when you miss. And so it's now had a negative impact on their defense as well, and that's the thing that's carried over.
Also, those players believe in Bruce Pearl. That's even just as important. And looking at this team, you remember the 2021 season when you had Sharif Cooper there, that they won 12 games. He missed the first half of the season. Big drop off. And I don't see that drop off to where Auburn only wins 12 games, 13 games, whatever. But they do struggle to shoot, and guard play is an issue. And you go back to that Miami matchup last year, they started 4 guards, and that was the Auburn SEC championship team that in early February had been ranked number 1. Just no match for what Miami did. Why is it so hard for Bruce Pearl and Auburn to get those elite guards? I mean, I know everybody else wants them.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's once again, there's only about a handful of those guys. And you start going, okay, who are those guys? But I mean, you think about it, Sharif Cooper was one of those guys. Yeah. He was one of those elite guards. Obviously you look at Isaac Okoro, and that guy was a 1-year NBA guy as a kind of small forward, but a big guard. Yeah. And they got one of the top guards in the country already signed to come in next year. So they've done a pretty good job of that. But it's difficult. There's a handful of those guys every year that you start talking about. Okay, who are difference makers? Who are the elite guys? And I mean, you're Auburn, and you've done a great job. But you still look around this country, and there's still Kentucky playing basketball, and there's still North Carolina playing basketball. There's still Duke playing basketball, and even in this league, you look at the emergence of Alabama, and look at Arkansas coming back and doing those things. There's not many of those guys to go around. And so you take your shots. Here's what Bruce Pearl has done. And I think it's been smart. We talked about transfer portal. I think he's realized that, right now, developing guys in basketball isn't going to happen. It's hard. Bryce Browne, for instance, isn't going to stay at Auburn for 3 years until he starts to kind of get his shot. It doesn't happen that way anymore. If you're not playing early, guys go somewhere else. That's why if you're Auburn, you shoot for the moon for the elite guys. And when you don't get them, then you go see if you can grab a transfer or two to kind of fill in the gaps. That's the way it looks like basketball is going to be built for a lot of places. And, it's worked pretty well for Auburn, for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you may have a good year or two and then a drop off and then several more good years. But you're right. It's just the landscape that we're dealing with now. Jason, thanks so much for your time today. Let people know how they can follow you. But I learned a lot today, and it made me think about the basketball model. And again, it's not just Auburn. It's everybody. I mean, nothing's going to change, and none of these programs are going to quit trying because you went out and got good players. But anyway, let them know how they can follow you, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, can check us out at auburnundercover.com, autigers.com as well, and can also follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
Hey, Jason, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. That is really interesting. In talking there with Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers, man, that the college basketball landscape, you're right. Kentucky's not going to quit playing basketball. Neither is Duke. Neither is North Carolina. Look at Nate Oates in Alabama. Brandon Miller, a lot of people tell you at least he's the best freshman in America. And it's not a reach to say that a true freshman is the best basketball player in America. You saw it last year with Jabari Smith, 6'10" guy that could shoot the ball, shoot the three. He could do everything. But like Jason said, he could pull other people over there to him, which opened up stuff for Kessler and the other guys. But Auburn signing an elite guard coming in for next year. If you're an Auburn fan, that's the best news you could imagine. All right, let's go down Saturday down south. Connor O'Gara joins us here on Sidelines on this Friday college football and basketball blitz. And Connor, it is a great time of the year. It's also it's a sad time of the year because football for college will be over late Monday night. And then we'll have everything going in through the Senior Bowl and the first week of February, National Signing Date. About 10 days later, though, spring practice will start back up again. That'll carry us through late April. Then the magazines come out around Memorial Day. And then, you'll have time at the beach, at the lake, on the river, and we'll make it the media days. And then here we go again. But glad to have you back on here. And we're all talking about TCU and Georgia. And I thought the semifinal games were as good as I can remember. But your takeaway up to this point on all that, the bowls and this national championship game at SoFi Stadium Monday night in Los Angeles.
If you had told me that TCU was going to be playing at a national championship this year, I would have told you to step out of the time machine. Remember that this is the college football playoff. Teams like TCU do not get this far. Teams with a first-year head coach do not get this far. You don't replace your statue coach off a team that did make it to a bowl game last year and suddenly go to a title game, not with a team that has talent outside of the top 25 like TCU. This is just not the way that it's supposed to go down. And who's your quarterback that's going to lead you there? Like Max Duggan? Like, give me a break. This run has been improbable, and we haven't seen anything like it in the playoff era. And not just because they've won all of these close games, first team since 1975 to win 7 consecutive games by 10 points or less. They have won these games in a way in which I think all of us have been like, all right, well, when are they going to lose? But we shouldn't be waiting on that more, because Michigan was the game that they were supposed to lose, and they came out as the better prepared, better coached team, and they beat a great football team on a neutral site, and they made those key plays. And this is what we should just expect for TCU going into Monday night. They're going to continue to make great offensive plays. I don't think that they're going to all of a sudden, have this back to life moment in which they're like, oh, hey, this is why a team like TCU can't win a national championship. They got here for a reason, and they got here because of the belief in Sonny Dykes and Garrett Riley, who have effectively used Max Duggan this year after he probably wasn't used in the way that he should have been in the previous few years with Gary Patterson and the scheme that they used to have there. So it is an improbable story. I think TCU is the best story in college football this year, but of course, Georgia awaits, and Georgia would love nothing more than to be the 4th team to repeat since 1980.
Yeah, well, to me, I'm with you. I think TCU, when you win those come from behind games really close like that, it just makes you a better team. That to me, and makes you closer. And I think that 13-point line is dangerous. I believe Georgia will win the game, but I think they're going to have to play a full 60, might even go to overtime, because that the DNA of TCU is as long as they have a pulse, they're going to fight, and that's a dangerous team to play.
Yeah, and you know what? Up until the Peach Bowl, I think you could have questioned that about Georgia. I mean, you really could have. They haven't had to play a whole lot of 60-minute games. They had to come back against Mizzou, but other than that, I mean, they have blown teams away, and we haven't needed to see that version of Stetson Bennett in the year 2022. Yeah. And there was real skepticism about what this Georgia team would look like if they fell behind. And I thought for the most part, the Peach Bowl felt like the 2021 SEC championship. And that game, when Georgia fell behind, it was kind of all she wrote, and they were done, stick a fork in them. And I think that's what this Georgia team has shown. I don't think it's better necessarily than last year's team. I think offensively they're better, but I don't think that overall you would look at this Georgia team and say that they're better. But what they can do is they can win a variety of football games. They can win 16-6. They can win 42-41. And to me, that is what I think you could have, that's the ideal thing that you could have asked for if you were a Georgia fan coming into this year, knowing that you lost 15 players to the NFL draft, knowing that you had 8 defensive players that were lost to the NFL. And oh, by the way, you lose your senior captain to a season-ending injury mid-season. Like, these are the things that, you hope to see some grit from your team. And Georgia has shown that it can do that in games under Kirby Smart, in which they allowed 30 points. This was going into the SEC championship. They were 73-6 when they allowed less than 30 points. And when they allowed at least 30 points, they were 1-9. I mean, the last 2 games, that's totally changed. And I think that's the mark of a team that is figuring things out at the right time. And even though Georgia defensively looks like it's taking a step back at the wrong time, I still think that the variety of ways in which they can beat you, it's never been higher under Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you look at, we talked with Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia for us in depth. And I asked him the same thing. What would you compare Georgia to at this time last year? Same thing. And y'all are both in agreement pretty much on the similarities and differences, positives, negatives, whatever. But let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back. Got some questions coming in. One of them, when we come back, who's going to be the new offensive coordinator at Mississippi State? That's from James Shimon out of Memphis, Mississippi State, Hail State fan, right after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett and Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne back here with Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. And Connor, again, that James Shimon talking about Mississippi State. He's a huge State fan listening to the show right now. And if you could throw that one in there, and we got a lot of stuff we're going to ask you about because you're the answer man.
Yeah, I think if you're Mississippi State, I'm under the impression that Zach Arnett is going to get away from the air raid because I don't think a lot of defensive-minded head coaches want to have that scheme in place. And even though he's done a really good job these last 3 years of being able to make it work alongside Mike Leach, I argued that he was Mike Leach's best defense coordinator that he's ever had. And I think that what if you went with somebody like Bush Hamdan? Now, Bush Hamdan is not necessarily a name that's very well known, but somebody who just had a lot of success down the stretch for Mizzou calling plays, which we found out Eli Drinkowitz said that he was the play caller in those last 2 games of the regular season. And then ultimately he gets a job at Boise State to be their new offensive coordinator. Could you Zach Arnett was somebody who was poached after taking the Syracuse defensive coordinator job. And then Mike Leach went out and got him, before obviously he ever coached a game there. Could you go up to Boise State and get somebody like him? There's a lot of potential to do something like that. And, I don't think that you necessarily need to, just because you went down the Kendall Briles road, I don't think that's necessarily the scheme that you automatically need to have. I think that there are a lot of benefits to being able to kind of have a veteran quarterback like Will Rogers, who I think a lot of offensive coordinators will like working with. And I think he will try and show that he's maybe a little bit more pro style and not necessarily entrenched in the Mike Leach version of the air raid, and that there's a little bit more that you can do with that. But, Chris Hatcher, the Samford head coach, if you want to keep it within the Leach tree, would be fascinating. I don't know what his urgency is to leave for a Power 5 offensive coordinator job, but I think those would be two roads that I would be very interested in going down.
Well, and let's look at Arkansas. I know a lot of Arkansas fans. We have a lot of Arkansas listeners. They're so frustrated, and they talk. Kendall Browse, he coaches, he plays not to lose. I was at the Liberty Bowl Wednesday night in that wild triple overtime win, 53-51 over Kansas. And this is the end of his third year. And I typically like to say you have about a 3-year shelf life as a coordinator, whether it's offensive or defensive, and you better make a lot of changes or people have already got you figured out and you're going to be in trouble. Even to the point where people thought he was going to go to Mississippi State and take KJ Jefferson, who's from Sardis, about 8 miles from Ole Miss's campus. But I didn't see that happening. Kendall Browse says he's going to stay and all. Talk about the job he's doing. He's got KJ Jefferson coming back, and also some big changes. I really like Travis Williams, T-Will, not just because he's from Auburn, but as a recruiter, as a developer of talent, and Marcus Woodson, who is one of the best defensive back coaches in the country. I know Marcus from his time at Auburn, from Moss Point, played at Ole Miss, great recruiter, and I think Florida State had the 4th best secondary in the country this year.
Yeah, so I think from Arkansas standpoint, you're building around KJ and Rocket. That's your entire offensive game plan. You're going to, I would have to think you're going to be super active in the transfer portal defensively. And what they have to work with, man, it's a massive question mark. To lose Jalen Catalon, to lose Bumper Pool, to lose Drew Sanders, like that, those are 3 guys right there. And I understand that Catalon was basically out for the entire year. And he's been unfortunately more, hurt than healthy in these last couple seasons. But you lose all that, and then obviously Barry Odom takes the head coaching job at UNLV. Some would argue that's addition by subtraction, but nonetheless, there are so many questions to answer on defense. So can this offense now do even more heavy lifting? Because when they were healthy this year, they were good. Now they weren't healthy, and KJ had some issues. And he's always going to have to play a little bit banged up. That's the running style that he takes on. But, people that are frustrated with Kendall Browse, I would say, well, is he really at fault for as much as, the defense has allowed? Because the defense was, to me, just such an Achilles heel this year. And it really hurt Arkansas in some of these key moments, letting Liberty get out to that early lead. I understand the offense was a bit asleep as well. But to me, I think that you're still in pretty good shape. And there are a lot of teams that do not have a duo as proven as KJ and Rocket and would love to have what Arkansas has, which is a true offensive identity. They need to get some help at receiver, of course, because they have a ton of turnover there. But I still think that Kendall Browse is going into a pretty favorable situation. They're just going to have to do even more heavy lifting probably in 2023.
Yeah, and we talked about the year before. Arkansas in 21 was 9-4. They won the close games. This year they lost 4 or 5 by 5 points or less. Just frustrating. And then you're right about KJ Jefferson. You have to accept the fact he's going to have to play a little bit banged up every game. They tell him, we're told, not to run the ball so much, but when you're that big and that fast, you always think, give me one more chance, I can do it. So it'll be fun to watch, but yeah, that the defense is, if the defense this year would have been better, say 50% better, Arkansas's record may have been 10 wins or more.
I thought that game, by the way, the A&M, the KJ, dive for the end zone was one of those very interesting sliding door moments in the SEC this year of what would Arkansas season have looked like if he had just held on to the football there. I mean, not necessarily score. I don't think he was scoring on that play, but just simply not fumble the ball and then have A&M run it back the entire other way with the handoff, lateral, whatever it was. I thought that really changed the trajectory of Arkansas season.
Yeah, and it's one of those cases where don't let the same team beat you 2 weeks in a row. That beat Arkansas a number of times throughout the season. They could not let go of that because they were looking at the implosion of A&M and going, how did we lose to those guys? And that's a tough thing as a coach to be able to do, is say, guys, you got to get over it. Don't let the same team beat you 2 weeks in a row, but damn it, it happened with them. All right, want to switch gears now. The A&M situation. Bobby Petrino, the guy's a great offensive mind. He's not known as a great recruiter per se. You know, his father was an NAIA legend, Hall of Fame coach for 29 years out in Montana. Hell, I remember when he left the Jacksonville Jaguars to come up to Auburn in 2002 for that 1 year as offensive coordinator. And ever since then, you know, he's just become a flashpoint figure. He's going down there with Jimbo, going to call the plays, we're told. I've seen this hustle before. Gus Malzahn, next man up. I don't see it working.
I don't either. And look, it's an upgrade to have Bobby Petrino calling plays instead of Jimbo Fisher. That's an upgrade. I'll agree with that point.
Yeah.
But with those egos at play, man, I just really wonder how that ends well. In A&M's ideal world, their ideal world, Bobby Petrino spends 2 years in College Station, does a great job, calls great offensive plays. They have like they go to like a New Year's Six Bowl. They have like a 10-win season. The offense looks like it's modernized, and then they get somebody else in there, and the status of that job is elevated. And Jimbo stays away from what Bobby Petrino's doing. He doesn't micromanage. There's not these sideline blowups, and it's shades of 2014 Alabama with Kiffin and Saban. That's, if you thought there were fireworks on the sidelines there, I can't imagine what it's going to potentially look like with Jimbo Fisher relinquishing play calling duties allegedly for the first time as a head coach and giving them to Bobby Petrino, a man who isn't afraid to ruffle feathers. That's been the case everywhere he's been, and he's not been shy about that. He can be blunt to a fault. And I'm very interested to see how that works with all the egos at play, not just Jimbo Fisher's, not just the ego of Jimbo Fisher, but all that five-star talent that they brought in last year, some of which who have, gone other places and have entered the transfer portal. But I just don't see how that ends well. I just don't. And if Jimbo can make this work, and if he can really take a step back and truly embrace the CEO role and give Bobby Petrino the full reins of the offense, it has a chance to work. But I think that's more of the upside, and it's not so much, oh yeah, Bobby Petrino is going to come in and be the missing ingredient to lead A&M to a national championship.
Yeah, it's just difficult to change at 57 years of age who you are as a coach. And just like Gordon Ramsay is not going to let his line chefs or his sous chef run Restaurant Ramsay. It's not going to happen. I have a friend that worked for him for 8 years. He said most people don't make it a night, 2 nights, and they're out of there. But they say, I worked for Gordon Ramsay, but they can't handle it. He said, by the way, when you see him on TV, thank God for the edit button, because he's not that nice. And what you're seeing is the nicest they can make him. All right, want to switch now over to my wife, Mildred Audrey, her school. She's Evolve for Life. I thought in the preseason, Tennessee could win 10 games. There's something about Josh Heupel, a South Dakota guy, went to Oklahoma. Mike Leach coached him, Bob Stoops. They win a national championship 13-4. Sounds like a baseball score against Florida State in the second year there. He's a cerebral coach. A lot of people say he looks like Bobby Hill from King of the Hill, but the guy can coach. And he's attracting a lot of talent up there. Rodney Garner is a great defensive line coach. We know about him. 41-plus players he has coached. They've gone on to the NFL. What about Act 3 of the Heupel era at Tennessee with Joe Milton, it looks like the third out of Pahokee down in the muck as your quarterback?
I like the way that they responded in the bowl game. I thought that was really important, because if they didn't, I would have wondered, do we just watch 2020 Florida all over again? And that would have been kind of the comp, a team that lost that game that they absolutely shouldn't have to end their playoff hopes. And then without several key pieces in the bowl game, just kind of laid an egg. And I thought Clemson was going to blow them out, and that didn't prove to be the case at all. And that speaks to Josh Heupel's ability to make sure that his team is prepared week in, week out, and his development skills. I mean, we still need to see it week after week from Joe Milton, because that's been the knock against him in his career. Of course, he's had 2 different chances to be a Power 5 starter. It looks like he's going to get a 3rd chance to be a Power 5 starter. But he showed great progress and touch in that bowl game. And that was the key development, because you know that you're going to have talent on the outside. The connection with Squirrel White looks really good. Brew McCoy's coming back. You know that they're going to have plenty of offensive skill players who can make those home run plays. That's great. But if you don't have a guy that can get him the football, it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. And Joe Milton, up to this point in his career, hasn't really shown that he has that touch necessary to play the position at a high level. But in that game, he looked great. And now he's going to have a chance to be the QB1. And Josh Heupel is going to have a chance to work with this piece of clay that has fascinated him since his time at UCF, when he was recruiting Joe Milton, an Orlando area product as well. And somebody that obviously has so much potential, and you see it. But obviously getting that to be able to translate into week after week success is a different story. So, yeah, I think Tennessee is heading in the right direction. I thought this year, having their best season since 2001 was as good of a step as you could have asked for.
Yeah, and the thing about Joe Milton, the third, is, he's got that cannon for an arm. It's the short and intermediate passes that are the struggle. But oddly enough, I picked in my little thing, I had Tennessee to win over Clemson 28-14. The reason I felt that way, something has happened with Clemson. They've lost a step. They're not the same program. I mean, Klubnik out of Westlake, or Travis out in Austin, comes in as a 5-star quarterback. I mean, he's a freshman. Okay. I'm not going to criticize him, but they tried to make it with DJ Uglialea. It just didn't work.
Not quite.
Yeah. Let's call him DJ. But they tried and tried and tried. But, my thinking about a player as a quarterback, skill, whatever, if a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. And they waited too long to make a change. What's going on at Clemson? They have all the resources. They've got a lot going for them. They have top 5, 6 talent in the country, but they are not the same. I know Dabo doesn't like the portal, doesn't like a lot of these things, but he's won a ton of games. Is he going to adapt, or is he going to dig in his heels?
It's adapt or die. He is not adapted. He wasn't in a position where he had to necessarily adapt in the latter part of the 2010s, when Clemson put together the second most impressive run that we have seen in this sport in the 21st century. He didn't have to adapt because the portal wasn't where it was. NIL wasn't what it was. And you didn't necessarily have to worry about those factors. And in these last couple of years, we have seen this finally catch up to Clemson. And this inability to rely on the portal. If Dabo eventually gives in and goes to the portal, you're going to look back on these 3 or 4 years in which he didn't and say, well, why didn't you just do it then? Because you set our program back by not doing that. And if your entire job, what you're paid $10 million a year to do, is to put our team in the best position possible to win football games, you didn't do your job effectively. And that's the frustrating thing, is that he stuck his heels in, and he had his comments at ACC Media Days calling DJ Uiagalelei, he's not a slap, what. And we're all like, well, he wasn't in the top 100 in the country in quarterback rating. What are you seeing in him that makes you think, oh, he's going to be this great quarterback, he's going to lead you back to the promised land? That was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And Clemson fans were admittedly probably a bit impatient with the way that the Cade Klubnik situation played out, but he's even still got a long ways to go. And to assume that he's going to be Trevor Lawrence 2.0, I think, is a bit ambitious. Clemson's not going to be at that tier that they were at in the latter part of the 2010s. It's as simple as that. They will not be at that level. They will be in the second tier, maybe even the third tier of programs, especially if they refuse to adapt, and if they refuse to acknowledge the way that the transfer portal has helped these elite teams be able to shore up some weaknesses on their roster.
Yeah, and it's to me, they've got money and all, but when you've got a head coach that's being stubborn, it can hurt you. I mean, you look at Auburn. Brian Harsin didn't believe in recruiting for 2 years. And now Auburn's signing these things called, offensive linemen. Yeah, they're at Auburn, they're unicorns. And Jason Caldwell was on Inside the Auburn Tigers right before you and said, in the last 4 years, Auburn basically did next to nothing in recruiting offensive linemen. now that's changing. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of NIL for, pay for play. If you've done something, great, get some money. I'd put it in an age banded trust so it's there later. But golly, when you just nailed it about Clemson, you got a guy getting $10 million a year. It's like, hey, your job is to make sure and promote us. Connor, I know you got a busy day ahead of you. Let people know how they can follow you. Great stuff. Phones lighting up like a Christmas tree with you all. Let people know how they can follow you. And we are always honored to have you on the show.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. We've got a lot of great content, SaturdayDownSouth.com. Tons of preview content for the national championship. We previewed it on the Saturday Down South podcast as well. Had Josh Pate on, had Shayan Jayaraja on. We kind of just took the CBS sports team and just brought them over for an episode of Saturday Down South podcast. But yeah, we have just so much stuff right now in the works to get you ready for the national championship and all the coaching carousel things. Coaching carousel is still spinning, transfer portal, tons of news. Adam Spencer does a great job with our SEC basketball coverage as well. Starting Five is a great column that he churns out. Just tons and tons of content. I always say just bookmark SaturdayDownSouth.com. It is the one-stop shop for any college sports fan.
Hey, thanks so much. Well, let's do this again next week after the national championship. Right back after this with more on Sidelines.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959, right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, Rob Browne back with you. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. Great stuff right there, covering a lot of college football. And we're going to head out west, man, in the land where it all began. Buc-ee's, Jacksonville, Texas, I think 1982. Auburn had a football player from, Lake Jackson, Texas. Yeah, in 1982. And the first Buc-ee's that they built outside of the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State, was, I believe, in 2019 in Robertsdale, Alabama, within Baldwin County, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, OBA. You know who else is from Robertsdale, Alabama? Auburn alum Tim Cook, who works for Apple. He sells phones. But Ken Capps joins us, Football Writers Association of America. Bo Carter will be jumping on board in a second, banged up with a broken ankle, but Bo Carter coming off injured reserve will be on the field today. But Ken Carter, I love saying this, but we need somebody from the Midwest, from up in like Fargo, North Dakota, to say it. The national championship game at SoFi Stadium Monday night, Dogs and Frags. Your wife is a frag, TCU Horned Frogs. How fired up is she about the national championship? Are you going to be able to go to the game? Are you taking the Hound? Are you flying? Are you driving? No tailgating out there? What in the wide world of sports is going on? But welcome to Sidelines.
Well, thanks a lot, and Happy New Year to you and your lovely wife. And you'll be happy to know it's been a real bonus week for me since Christmas. I've not only been to the Buc-ee's in Temple, Texas, but I was also me and my lovely daughter Caroline. We were also at Cisco's yesterday having a Samigas.
Oh, God.
So man, it's just like a dream come true week for me.
Yeah.
But if there's a real dream come true, yes, it's for my lovely wife Laura, who not only flew out to Phoenix last week for the game versus Michigan, but now is packing her bags and she's going out tomorrow to LA for the game on Monday night. And I was over at the Frogs media availability on Tuesday, and man, those guys, they are so tight, they are so solid. They are not acting like they're just happy to be there. I mean, they're going to LA to do their business, And, I think it's just going to be an amazing game. And, I guess the whole thing is going to come down to, like it did against Michigan, turnovers. I mean, my gosh, to have 2 pick sixes go against Michigan like that, that's just that was just a backbreaker for Michigan.
Yeah. It was incredible. And I'm hearing a lot of chatter out there that TCU is going to have one of their top players, 6'10", 473-pound sophomore defensive end from Sheffield, Alabama, Bo Carter, on the field Monday night. Bo Carter, welcome to Side. There you are.
Good to be here. I need to. Yeah, he's still on the DL, but he will be back in about 4 weeks to cause mayhem.
There we go. Here we go. Hey, Bo, I like that breakdown. I watched the game Saturday, TCU and Michigan, and we have a lot of guests that cover a lot of different teams, 1 or 2 teams or nationally, and a consensus was 3 or 4 wins for TCU this season. I don't know what it is about some people not looking at the portal. I think we're just so used to what you sign out of high school, some JUCO players. But man, Ken, you nailed it a few weeks ago. You said, no doubt, my coach of the year is Sonny Dykes.
Amen.
You pegged that. And so, Bo, I got to say that the state of Texas, your centers of influence for college football. It's tough to say. Well, Atlanta is, I think, the largest college sports market in America. 6.5 million people, 22 counties. Birmingham per capita, 85% of people surveyed identify as a college football fan. I'm told the other 15% never received the survey. And then you've got Dallas-Fort Worth. My God, I got to say it, the Metroplex. But, I mean, it's incredible. But you've got the Big 12. You've got Conference USA, American Athletic Conference. This is a great year. And I think the Big 12 and the SEC, the 2 best conferences, they're also playing for the national championship. But how far has to me, this is great for the state of Texas. And now Texas is coming in the SEC, and Oklahoma, which is Texas light, is coming to the league. Y'all might be in the eye of the storm from here to eternity.
It's Rob. It's amazing. I was going to say too. Birmingham is also according to the FBI, the betting capital of the United States.
We had 3 bookies in the chapter room, 3 bookies, and we sold beer. But we had 3 bookies in Alabama. They would bet on. I bet Browne can't finish his plate.
Yeah. And Tuscaloosa and Auburn, right, number 2
yes.
and 3, I think. But
Gadsden is the betting capital of the world.
No, but you're right. Have a lot of, Ken can tell you, a lot of pride in the state of Texas, and with TCU finally being the first team from Texas ever to make the college football playoff. 9 seasons in,
yeah.
I think that a lot of people jump behind them, and it again, as Ken pointed out, you can't say enough about Sonny Dykes. His dad was one of the all-time great people, storytellers. Sonny told a quick story, and sorry to digress, but he'd come back from a football game, and R.C. Slocum, the Hall of Fame coach from Texas A&M, and Spike Dykes were in the living room having a couple of cool pops at 1 o'clock in the morning, the day before their teams played the next day. That was, you just don't see that anymore in college athletics, but it's Sonny Dykes got those 13 transfers in. The guys, it's like Lane Kiffin says about Nick Saban. He had a draft and got the other 13, 14 players in, and the chemistry of the team's been amazing.
Yeah. Ken, talk about that. 13 players coming in via the portal. We know what Mel Tucker did last year at Michigan State, getting 14, and 13 of them were major contributors, including Kenneth Walker III out of Arlington, Tennessee, right here in Shelby County. Went to Wake Forest, transferred up there. But Sonny Dykes, you've been around him. What elaborate and add on to what Bo just said about his personality. We all know about his dad, Spike Dykes. And you got the greatest names in Texas. Does anybody out there have a real name? Sonny, Spike, Red? I love it.
Well, Sonny told a great story on at TCU a couple days ago when somebody asked, remember the media said, well, what advice do you think your dad would give you for the national championship game? And he said, well, my dad would say what Coach Darrell Royal said a long time ago: dance with those that brung you.
I love it. I love it.
And man, that is one of the most sacred sayings in the state of Texas. For so many, everybody knows what "dance with those that brung you" means in this state, And I just thought it was really cool that Sonny was quoting his dad, who was quoting Darrell Royal,
Yeah. Yep. Well,
And but the most important thing, I think, not only did Sonny do well in the portal, but bringing over Lincoln Riley's little brother from SMU didn't hurt either. And when I was in the media room for the Cotton Bowl and listening to Lincoln Riley kind of sit there shell shocked, and somebody said to him in the middle after the Cotton Bowl loss, said, "So what do you think of your little brother having the possibility to win a CFP game before you do?" He had a great line too. He said, "Well, come Monday, I'm going to be the biggest TCU fan in the United States." And so, what Garrett Riley has done at TCU is just really amazing. But even bringing in those 14, transfers and everything he's done, this has been a lightning in a bottle season for TCU. Sonny has ruined it for every other coach around the country now who walks into a program and goes undefeated until the conference championship game, then still makes it to the Final Four, then wins their first Final Four game and makes it to the national championship. That's just, I don't know even what the odds are on that, of somebody doing that again. But Sonny has set a precedent that will be very, very, very hard for any other college coach to attain.
Yeah, you go back to when Gus Malzahn came to Auburn 2013. He'd been there 09, 10, 11. Did what every Auburn coach lately does. He went to Jonesboro, to the borough, coached at Arkansas State for a year, came back to Auburn, and inherited the worst Auburn team in 62 years. They were 3-9, lost every game in the SEC. My father was at Auburn in 1950 when Wofford beat Auburn, and Auburn went 0-10 that year. So he can back me up on this one. And he remembers when the new governor of Alabama, Gordon Person, was sworn into office. He said, "I promise and swear to uphold the duties of governor of Alabama. Are we done yet?" And they said, "Yes, sir. Fire the Auburn coach and let's go hire Shoot Jordan." And Dad said they celebrated on the lawn over there at the president's mansion there in Auburn. And he was at KA. They were right across the street, and it was a wild party. And, I don't think they had an after party. I don't think they ever stopped. But that was the first time, as Vince Dooley famously said, prior to Coach Jordan coming back to Auburn, everybody in the South had always hired a Notre Dame man or someone from Yale, a Harvard, a Princeton. So it was significant that the folks at Auburn had gone with Coach Jordan, who I loved like a father. And he and Jeff Beard, the athletic director, went downtown. Auburn was so broke then they couldn't pay attention. And they walked up there to the Auburn Bank and met with Milburn Drysdale and got $100,000 loan, not to Auburn athletic department, but to them on a handshake. And boy, did that turn out to be a good return on the investment. Also, love one of Vince Dooley's greatest lines ever. God love him. Have y'all seen the Delta Airlines jet that Georgia is flying on from Atlanta Hartsfield Airport to Los Angeles? The Delta Airlines jet has the legendary coach Vince Dooley written on the side of it. That is a hell of a tribute to a great native of Mobile. I think he went to Murphy High School, but Vince Dooley one time was asked about the first ever Auburn Georgia game. believe it was February 20th, 1892. My dad was there. I need to call him and make sure I got the date right. But February 20th, 1892, Piedmont Park in Atlanta. Coach Dooley said it was quite a setting. Most of the folks there had fought in the war between the states, and some of them were elderly. And Georgia, there were about 5,000 people there, and Georgia's mascot was a goat. And he had a red and black cape, and they brought him up there to the game. And after the game, which Auburn won 10-0, they had arguably the first tailgate barbecue in the South. They cooked the goat.
There you go. You always wonder where these things come from, you know?
That's right.
Absolutely. But, man, and we're going to have Lauren, what do you got? Quickly. Well, there, Georgia got a tough one here with TCU at SoFi Stadium. I texted Lauren Smith last night, legendary sideline reporter, Georgia Pregame Network. He goes, Rob, I'll be glad to be on Sidelines Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'll be in L.A. When you go out anywhere with Lauren Smith, when we were at the Athens Country Club last year for lunch with him, a Donald Ross golf course, I felt like I was out with Regis Philbin in the day in New York. Everybody coming up there going, Lauren, we got to do lunch. Lauren, let's do it. Hey, who loves you, baby? Tahoe, Reno, Vegas, Atlantic City. Tell them Telly sent you. But, man, y'all guys, both of y'all get me going crazy. I'm so fired up. This national championship game, though, y'all just, whoever wants to take it on. The state of Texas, there's 30 million people that we know of in the state. And I start thinking about this, man, all these great schools, all this money and everything. And the first Texas team to be in the playoff, and not since 2009 when Texas played Alabama. I don't think that's going to be lost on the college coaches and high school coaches and the fans of those schools. This may be the start of something more consistent. I don't think TCU's going anywhere.
Well, and look at it this way. I spoke to Brent Yarmack about this at the Big 12 championship game. The new commissioner of the Big 12, and he's a whole different ball game than Bob Bowlesby. I mean, Bob Bowlesby did an incredible job, but was more a kind of a laid back, behind the scenes type of commissioner. Yarmack worked with like Beyonce on contracts, and is a guy from New York. And so, he wants to do things bigger and flashier and brand everything. And I mean, that's the way of the world these days. And so in fact, I told my wife, Laura, this the other day, because we talk a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of football gets talked in this house. And I said, man, Brent Yarmack is just sitting there right now, just in his office with his door closed, boots up on his desk, just laughing so hard that it is TCU, a team that's staying in the Big 12, his Big 12, that's going to the national championship game, and it's not Texas or Oklahoma, who have been the bell cows of this conference for so long. They are the ones not going to the national championship games, and they're the ones leaving. And, it's been a Cinderella year for him too, if you think about it. And so, I mean, I think that's going to, I think it puts a lot of heat on a lot of coaches. Like I said, it's going to be like, why can't you do it like Sonny Dykes? Why can't you do it like Sonny Dykes? And I mean, it's like almost impossible to do it like Sonny Dykes, but Sonny Dykes has proven it can be done. And another great line he had, God, I wish I'm so glad that my memory is working this morning, because he had so many great quotes, because somebody asked him again, a question. So did you ever think it would go like this? Your first year at TCU? He goes, no, I didn't, but I'm sure glad it didn't go like my first year at Cal when I was 1 out of 11.
Wow. Great. Look, we're going to take a quick break here. Mildred has reminded me that stopwatch is coming up on the 17:30. Great. Sonny Dykes in the Big 12, Brett Yormack, new commissioner. It's one of the best jobs, but Bob Bowlesby, when he reacted last year, was just as strong. We'll talk about it after this quick break.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, Bo Carter, Big 12 office, Football Foundation, National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America. You think we love college football and basketball? Where do you see our baseball coverage? We're going to have a lot of fun with college baseball and something they're good at in Texas as well. And I tell you, I think one of the funniest commercials I've seen lately is the one about picking up that hitchhiker that you never knew was a cornhole prodigy. I mean, I don't pick up hitchhikers, but my dad says, boy, we used to hitchhike back and forth from Auburn all the time. You know, get in there and hear some bad stories. And sometimes the people smelled like mothballs, but you just roll the windows down, you know, so you just got through it. But guys, what is going on at TCU in the Big 12? Go back to last year, and Ken, I remember at SEC Media Days in Hoover at the Winfrey, when it was announced, when Jimbo Fisher was up on the podium talking about A&M, and someone brought that question up in the crowd about A&M, about Texas and OU inquiring about membership in the SEC. My first reaction internally was, it's already a done deal, or they wouldn't be bringing it up. Mm-hmm. And Jimbo said, well, whatever. I want to talk about Texas A&M. But when they went out and got BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, that was a quick reaction as opposed to having a pity party. I don't know Bob Bowlesby. Both of y'all do. But that's one of the great save jobs I've ever seen, Bo. You've been in the Big 12 office. You know the inner workings down there, but that's incredible.
Yep, and they went through the same thing in 2011 too, Rob, with with Colorado, A&M, Nebraska, and Missouri all taking off, and there was wailing in national TV. And Ken will remember this. Chuck Ninus had to come in. Kevin Weiberg had left. I think he was he was trying to do equal distribution for all teams in the Big 12, a la SEC, and most of them, and he kind of got put back and told to be quiet or whatever. And then Dan Beebe came in. And the Longhorn Network started, and that caused major, uprising there or whatever. So Chuck Ninus had to come in. If the Big 12 had gone below 10 teams, all their multimedia contracts would have been nullified. So they grabbed TCU in West Virginia, pardon me, and the rest is history, I guess.
Ken, talk about that low point when you almost dropped below that 10 membership threshold. I think that's hard to believe, but it almost happened.
Well, it did. And, for those of us that were around, for the mighty Southwest Conference, and it was that legendary conference with so many great teams and so many great players and colorful coaches, and then to fall to right on the edge there, and of course, A&M is still mad about the Longhorn Network. But I always tell people there's not enough Aggies out there that would watch an Aggie Network. I don't know what they're mad about, but anyway, but the thing is, TCU was part of the Southwest Conference. They came back. I thought West Virginia was a big reach, especially from a geographical standpoint, because of the travel for everybody having to go to West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia. I mean, gosh, you guys do this. I mean, even I know Bo, helped Columbus, and do his first maps. West Virginia to Texas. I mean, that's a hell of a long flight. Yeah. And when we were taking the volleyball team or whoever else, that gets even longer. So that's going to be another issue when you come up with these new teams that are coming to the South, to the Big 12. Flying to Florida, Utah, Cincinnati. But I guess you just have to do it because these other teams, the way I look at it, these other teams also want to join the Big 12 because they're gonna be getting a better deal and a lot more TV money. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the Big 12 is begging them. It's gonna be good for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question for both of y'all, whoever wants to tackle it. In Memphis, the University of Memphis has the new president. I know him, Dr. Bill Hardgrave, came from Auburn after 12 years, built the business school up there to what it is now, which is larger than the College of Engineering at Auburn, 200 students, 6,400 versus 6,200. That's never happened in Auburn history. I mean, that's kind of like Auburn signing an offensive lineman the last 4 years. Unicorn. But Bill Hardgrave is from Clarksville, Arkansas, out between Conway and Fort Smith. Guy's an amazing story. First person in his family to ever finish high school. Has a PhD in information systems from Oklahoma State. Mr. Lauder brought him to Auburn in 2009. He was there 12 years, dean of the College of Business. Again, then he was provost until April 1st. He assumed the role of presidency at the University of Memphis. That guy is a highly motivated. You don't have to light a fire under his rear. It's burning internally. He's a people person. He walks through campus to his meetings so he can interact with the students. We'll talk to anybody about the University of Memphis. And I'm sure he knows that the next 3 to 5 years, more likely in the next 2 to 3, you better have a plan and do something. We know Memphis has money. The Bellses, Fred Smith, the FedEx money, Pitt Hyde and the AutoZone money. There's a lot of other people. List is long. Memphis has probably 6 billionaires just in the city of Memphis. What about Memphis in the Big 12? If Cincinnati can take that dumpster fire of a football program they had just a few years ago, playing at Crump Stadium Light up there, and Houston, which there are probably more people in line on Black Friday in the parking lot at Walmart than there were at a lot of their football games for a long time. They can get in the Big 12. And that's a giant TV market. I get it. And Orlando, which nobody is from Orlando, Florida. It's the home of the Witness Protection Program. But what are the chances, likelihood, possible scenarios where Memphis gets into the Big 12, and what do they need to do? Because Simmons First Bank, it was announced as $150 to $200 million commitment to Liberty Bowl Stadium. But what do you think about those chances? Because I tell the people in Memphis, I said, you want to get in the Big 12? Then you got to have 60,000 people there, regardless of who you're playing. They're there because they're there to watch the University of Memphis. Do y'all ever see it happening?
Ken, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing you got to do is put together if this guy's a business whiz and a people person, then he needs to go toe to toe with Brent Yarmack, because I guarantee you Brent Yarmack will listen to you. And that's the one thing that I found very refreshing about him, is that he will definitely look at anything you want to bring him. Again, the deals that he's put together, you read his bio, he's a rock star, man. And I was surprised when he came down here, especially at Big 12 Media Days last year, because you've got a pretty established set of people, and they're all from the Midwest and Texas and everything. And then you've got this guy from, Manhattan, and he's definitely sticks out as a New Yorker, right, Bo?
Yes.
But you know what? He was as nice as he could be to everybody. He was in everybody's face, shaking everybody's hand. And I mean, I was really I was just impressed with him. And I think you go to Brent and you say, look, we want to join the Big 12. Here's what we got to offer. And then Brent comes back and I know he'll say, he go, well, that ain't enough. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
And then you go back and see if you can do it. But Memphis makes a lot more sense, from the standpoint of geography and rivalries than a West Virginia does, than a BYU does. And there's the whole thing about BYU, they can't play on certain days. So that's going to be a scheduling issue for them, coming down to play in Texas and down here in Oklahoma. So, hey, man, the sky's the limit with Brent. I mean, he's going to definitely, he's not looking back. He's not sitting in his office going, woe is me, woe is me.
Yeah.
OU and Texas are leaving. And I tell you what's going to happen. Here's going to be the two new bell cows of the Big 12. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be TCU and it's going to be Texas Tech. That's going to be the other one. I guarantee you it's going to be Texas Tech.
And to Ken's point too, Rob, the SMU's been talked about. There's always a big battle when the Southwest Conference disbanded. I think TCU didn't want SMU to be in the WAC with them, and it's mainly Rob. They're after the same dollars in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or whatever too. But and I hark back to the thing. I think at some point they keep talking about there are going to be 4 16-team super conferences, and that's where like a Memphis, SMU could come to the Big 12 and maybe 2 more teams. Yormark has always already talked to Gonzaga as a basketball member, Ken, which is pretty neat. We met with them in Austin when they played down there, and so he's a mover and a shaker as we know. Like you could have a 17-team conference with Gonzaga as the basketball bell cow. So this guy doesn't miss a trick, as Ken pointed out, very, very personal guy, real, go-getter on the move.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw him light for 10 seconds, maybe when he was on a headset or whatever, but he was working the room and looking for Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, that's the other one. Yeah.
God. Well,
really interesting times.
Yeah. I mean, you thinking about what y'all are just saying, this guy's super calm, super commissioner. I remember at the University Club in Memphis in the fall of '92, Jackie Sherrill in his second year as the head football coach, as Jack Crystal would say, of the maroon and white of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. There's movement in the aisles here as Coach Jackie Sherrill makes his way up here to press row. And Coach, we'll wrap this one in maroon and white and whatever other colors you want. Great win for the Bulldogs. Scott Field, Davis Wade Stadium here, and this crowd was on their feet ringing their bells the entire time. But Jackie Sherrill said this in 1992. He said, I foresee 4 or maybe 5 super conferences in the coming years. And Coach Sherrill was supposed to be on the show with us Tuesday. That's why we took off a few days, by the way, right before and after Christmas, before and after New Year's. It's just, I think everybody was off a day. He had a staff meeting come up at 9. He's going to reschedule and come on with us. And he is so nice, just so gracious with his time. And God, he is a smart man. And I know he's so fond of the NCAA. And I love him, man, because I don't like him either. But anyway, not on everything. But you go back, man, and you think about the super conferences. And then you think about the significance. And we talked about it earlier this week of what the Tulane victory over Southern Cal means. Willie Fritz, Willie's a young guy. He's got a lot of coaching, a lot of miles left on those all-terrains. God, the way they won it was just incredible. 12-2, and our good friend Frank Duffy grew up as a ball boy for Tulane. Frank's the only guy I know. Well, there's probably more than Frank, but that I know really well, who goes to the LSU game in the day and then goes down to New Orleans for the night game for Tulane. But that was a big win. And I'm going to say this, and y'all, again, jump in whenever. The 12-team playoff is great for college football, just like when we expanded the basketball tournament. And I think about it for this reason, that in November, every team in the top 25 is going to be saying, hey, man, we're in the hunt for the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
That's great for interest coast to coast, isn't it?
Most definitely. And you know what? I think it's really going to, at least I hope it does, it's going to cut down some on this whole opt out of the bowl games.
Yeah.
Because I'm really sick and tired. I'm really sick and tired of it. And
Yeah.
I was really thrilled that Will Anderson and Bryce Young both played for Alabama. And then afterwards, Will came out and announced he's going to go in the draft. Great. But the fact that he took the time to and honored his teammates. And I'll tell you who I was not thrilled with, was my favorite mustard guy, Bijan Robinson. He's standing there. And I mean, I love the guy. He's very respectful, very nice. But every time Texas missed a third down or a fourth down and short, ESPN would cut to the sidelines, show him standing over there like, well, if he'd have been in the game, things would have been different.
Yeah.
And, he should have been standing down at the VIP sidelines where Vince Young was and all the other Texas celebrities, because it was just a big distraction, I think. So, but I'm not going to do my diatribe on the Alamo Bowl. We've got other things to talk about, but my point is that, yes, I think that the playoffs will make those bowl games more meaningful again, so people won't opt out of them. And let me tell you what, the Cotton Bowl, it goes in the New Year's Six rotation. It was not part of it this year, but it'll go back again. And in the playoffs, it certainly will be in that rotation. But man, this was the best unexpected Cotton Bowl that the Cotton Bowl folks, and we Bo and I both know them very well, they could have ever have asked for, because I think most people out there thought USC was going to mop the floor with Tulane. And man, those guys just came out there with just every ounce of enthusiasm and would not go down. And with 5 minutes left in the game, how much were they down, Bo? 12 points, 15?
Yeah, I think 407 down 12 points.
Yeah. And I mean, people had pretty much said, okay, well, this game's over. And then they come back and win. And then on the targeting call on the fourth down, that gave them the new life. I mean, and yes, I agree with you, Rob. Willie Fritz is another one of those guys. Go from 2-12 to 12-2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Look, I remember, and I think this is the right year, 1972. Auburn was a prohibitive underdog against Alabama, a team that was undefeated, heading to the Cotton Bowl to play Texas. And Coach Bryant kind of jokingly said, I'd rather beat that beat that Cal College 10 times than beat Texas. And Auburn comes up there, prohibitive underdog. And after the game, of course, we know Bama punt, Auburn won 17-16, 75,000 people there, 8.9 million claimed they were actually there. It's unbelievable. The legend grows. But I think Coach Jordan one time on the South Central Bell presents the Auburn Football Review with Coach Ralph Shug Jordan. Carl Stevens was talking to him. He said, well, Coach, great comeback over Alabama yesterday. And he goes, well, I seem to remember, Carl, that David was something along the lines of a 40-point underdog versus Goliath. And that seemed to work out okay. So at Auburn, we'll take the win. And I know Coach Bryant was not happy, but he's a friend, and we got the win. We'll be right back with more on the
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
I tell you what, guys, we don't take calls. We don't take calls on the phone from just random callers, but I tell you what, I can't help it, but over at the hunting club, a lot of times late at night after a few road sodas, I'll get on my phone and go on there to YouTube, and the Fine Bomb, they have all the Mildred calls and chronicled. You know, there's hundreds of them. It's like, is this correct, Vickers? Speaking of fossils and Mildred from Tuscaloosa. Mildred, I thought you were dead. How are you? How are you? Doing fine, Mildred. How you doing? Well, Alabama lost football game. I'm pretty tore up about it. Well, Mildred, they've won 107 of the last 109. They'll be okay. Well, I'm still pretty PO'd. They need a new coach. But anyway, some of these people, honestly, I think Nurse Cratchit or Nurse Ratchet, whatever, just doesn't get their meds to them in time. But God, some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard. Mildred, you just think about Mildred in the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. Woo, man. Halloween couldn't get here soon enough. All right, guys, let's get back. I love Ken. I think you were talking about it. Maybe it was Bo last week on our Friday Texas roundtable. I love this, man. Who's still the king of Texas swing? Who? Anyone?
Bob Wills, baby.
Bob Wills.
Damn right. Hey, Bob Wills. Hey, Jimmy Rogers train songs, Hank Williams pain songs, and Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain.
Willie Nelson.
Have either one of y'all ever been to Lugenbach, Texas?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's a real town.
It's
in
a real
Green,
town.
too. In
All
suburban Green, Texas, too. Is good.
There you go.
Green Hall.
I love it. So you talking about Darrell K. Royal used to have a hotel like room or something after a Texas game, and the writers would come there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're in this era now when nobody wants to talk about, interacting coaches and writers. That was the golden age. We're going to go back to that. I like what y'all said about Brett Yormark. He was just talking to everybody, and he's from New York. He's coming down here in Texas. He's obviously got him some good cowboy boots, which you got to have. Yeah. But I think we're going to go back to that because you cannot get any better than having guys like y'all, all y'all on this show with your rich inventory of stories and information, but it's the relationships that you have with these coaches. And it's just incredible to hear it. And I want to say hello to one of our listeners who was on the show with us a couple of weeks ago, Jerry Kirby. I never met anybody in my life. Watches every NFL game, tapes all of them. The ones he doesn't watch during the season, he watches in the off season, and he has the all 50 states high school package, studies plays and everything like that. Thanks for listening. He's got the show up on the color TV screen there. I got to say the relationship part of it with the coaches. But Ken, a few minutes ago, you talked about Lincoln Riley in the locker room in the post-game press conference after losing in the Cotton Bowl. How was he? What was his demeanor like? I mean, even as someone said, Gary Harris from Tide 100.9 yesterday, even after a loss, Coach Saban will come in there and he said he's actually a lot different than what you think, but he's going to answer the questions. What about these young coaches? And I'm going to borrow a term my wife uses with little kids. They've got the pout face, spreading the dreary wearies all over the place. Am I correct, Audrey? There we go. What about these young coaches that wear long sleeve T-shirts on the sidelines and, just kind of too cool for school?
Well, I mean, Lincoln Riley wears long sleeve T-shirts on the side.
Oh, okay.
but you know what? He guided up. The losing team goes first as his protocol. And he came in there, and let me say this: Caleb Williams was supposed to join him up there, and he did not come out. He was announced to come out, and he did not come out.
Yeah.
Okay. So he brought a couple of other guys with him, and then I believe that Caleb came out later in breakout rooms. But I was a little upset that Lincoln didn't say, "You get your butt up here on this table. I don't care who you are, and get up here and talk to the press." Because he was ready. I mean, and I'm sure you heard the broadcast too. they have the broadcast going there in the press box.
Yep.
And in the interview room before the game's over, I mean, the announcers were hailing him, as the MVP. He was going to be the MVP of the game with 5 touchdowns. He broke the Cotton Bowl record, which was set by Craig Erickson in 1991 when Miami beat Texas, that awful game, 30-3.
Texas had 247 yards. No, Miami had 247 yards of penalties,
and still the record.
But anyway, but Lincoln came out. Now, of course, he wasn't a happy guy.
No,
but he came out and faced the music. He gave credit to the Tulane. Now, he and Willie were together several different times at Cotton Bowl events, and they were definitely very, very cordial with each other, which I thought was great. Lincoln is from Muleshoe, Texas. Did you know that?
Say that again.
Muleshoe, like a horseshoe.
Yeah.
He's from Muleshoe, Texas.
God, I love it.
And that's right outside of Lubbock. Okay.
Okay.
And he and his brother Garrett grew up there. And so, I'd ask him the question the other day, how often do you get back to Muleshoe? And his parents are obviously getting older now. So they just moved to Lubbock, I guess, to live, closer to medical facilities and all that.
Yeah.
But he had a whole contingent of folks coming in from Muleshoe to Arlington to see him coach the game, And so Lincoln was very good with the media, answered all the questions, but I thought he faced the music really well. But let's be honest, he was not some happy-go-lucky guy. He was sincerely ticked that his team lost.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be happy. I'm glad that I love what you just said, and face the music. But Caleb Williams, get your R's up there, son, right now. Yeah, you know what I remember, Bo? I don't know if either one of y'all remember 2003 Ole Miss Auburn game in Auburn, and Auburn's driving down there at the end, and in the end zone, right there on the goal line, Ben Obamanu out of Selma, Alabama, wide receiver for Auburn. Remember that when the ball hit him right in the chest and he dropped it? Well, a friend of mine was a starting offensive lineman on that team. And I said, what did y'all say when he came back to the huddle? He said, hey, we got 4th down. Remember, that was only 3rd down. But you know what? Auburn didn't get the win. But after the game, guess where Ben Obamanu was? Right up there on that podium. Coach Tuberville had him up there, answered every question that was asked. And he went on to have like a 7-year NFL career. And graduated from University of Alabama, Hugo Black College of Law, is now a successful practicing attorney. Strap it on, boys. Man up. Face the music. And that's why I believe we're going to go back. And Ken, as a writer, Bo, as a writer, you tell the stories. It's like when I went to the Sistine Chapel, I walked all the way over there from my hotel in Rome in August. It was 173 degrees. I crossed the Tiber River, got to the Sistine Chapel, and I was like, God, I left my wallet in the hotel. I had to go back and get it. Got in there, and I'm looking up there, and they've got the guys on scaffolding. They're restoring the frescoes. My dad, being an architect and an artist, said, boy, if you'd have gone all the way to Rome and I'm paying for it and you forgot your wallet and couldn't get in the Sistine Chapel, I may have killed you. So I go in there, and I look at that. And I think about the writers. What did Mark Twain say? I would have written a shorter book if I'd have had more time.
Right.
It is so powerful to watch an artist like paint something as it's happening. It's almost one of the hardest things you can do. Dad says few things in the world are uglier than a half-finished painting. And that's true. But you have to write this stuff. I remember the days when you went in there. Remember the circular little tubes they had at the press boxes to develop your film and all that chemical stuff in there. And God only knows what happened. Some of these guys may have children with gills and dorsal fins coming out of those chemicals. But think about that. And then after the game, you went out, opened up the trunk, had some pops, some road sodas, maybe some Gentleman Jack, and you talked for hours telling the stories. But I go back to what our friend Buddy Martin, God, I love that guy, and Franz Beard, and Ben Troop, all the Gatorette media guys, said, we would fly to Jackson or the Golden Triangle. And the Golden Triangle consists of which three cities, Bo Carter?
Starkville, West Point, and Columbus. There you go.
Damn right.
The Golden Rectangle.
Yeah. Starkville, Columbus, and West Point.
Yep. If you included Phoebe, that was the Golden Rectangle.
There you go.
So Columbus, West Point.
They would fly for the Florida-Mississippi State game if it was in Jackson or Starkville. And Bob Hartley, or probably you at some point, you did too, would pick them up at the airport. Ken, isn't that really cool to hear that? Whereas today, you listen to some of these clowns on some of these shows, and they act like they don't even speak to people that are fans of other schools. I mean, come on. Auburn and Alabama fans are all married to each other. That's why the rivalry is so intense. And when you all tell those stories, I got to borrow a great quote from a proud son of Sylacauga, Alabama, Gomer Powell. Thank you.
Well, and I mean, that's why I love to research the coaches and where they're from, the players and where they're from. As an example, one of the TCU running backs is from Inglewood, California.
Yeah.
And so he's basically saying that state SoFi is about 5 minutes from my house. And so he kept correcting people the other day. The people kept saying, we're going to LA. He goes, no, you're going to Ingleside.
Inglewood,
Ingleside.
And so, I love stories like that. I mean, I do the X's and O's and all that, but I really enjoy those, putting the color into the games too, and knowing that Lincoln Riley is from some, I loved it. I called it from Muleshoe to Malibu.
Yeah. Hey, Bo, I tell you, the first when I met Ken back this summer at SEC Media Days, I watched him interact with these celebrities and all, but I watched him interact with Tim Tebow and just watched it. And it's like, remember Marshall Dillon? He was 6'7". Remember, he'd go up to you and he just would reach in your holster and pull your gun out and go, all right, you're coming with me.
Yeah.
And I mean, we need more Marshall Dillons in the world. Ken's not 6'7", but he's got that personality like that. And as a sports information director, the most important person, I'm telling you the truth, how I see it, for that university, because you are the conduit to the national media. Hell, I met Jim Lampley. Remember him? Was ABC, CBS, talking to him one time up in the press box. I think it was the 1987 Iron Bowl, and it was on a Friday. That was the first time I ever had to miss Thanksgiving dinner with my family, because I worked for CBS when I was in college. On those games, they would pay you for the weekend. Had to go down there Thursday, but late that night I did have some turkey, so I kept the streak alive. I was talking to him about college football and everything, and I said, the coolest thing is David Housel, Auburn's SID, legendary man. I love him, a mentor of mine. I've learned more from him and Buddy Davidson. It's just incredible. Would put the menu out in the press box. And Jim Lampley would be saying, on the menu today up in Jordan-Hare Stadium in the press box, black-eyed peas, fried chicken, turnip greens, fried okra, eggplant casserole, pecan pie with vanilla ice cream, and sweet or unsweetened tea at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It didn't matter if Auburn was 3-8 or 9-0. It got Auburn out there in the front because they liked the way they were treated.
Amen.
And David ripped me one time. I felt like a dog with a tail between his legs, because I was in the press box and I cheered one time. He goes, y'all know the rules.
Yeah.
He goes, there will be the Burgermeister, the year with no Christmas, there will be no fun of any kind. But I never forget those lessons. You have to be professional and objective. And these are our guests, but the best ever was the two Japanese writers covering college football in September of 1982. Auburn's playing Wake Forest, and Bo Jackson reaches way back with his left arm, grabs the ball, runs in for about an 11-yard touchdown. And these two guys start going, it was unreal how excited they were. They were speaking Japanese. They were so cool. And I talked to them through an interpreter, and they were so gracious and so They said, we're going all around America covering college football. But you know what else is ginormous in Japan? Bass fishing. You just don't think of, Joe Bob and Billy Bob going, put on your jumpsuit and some of them slip-on shoes and a ball cap. We going bass fishing over there in Yokohama. But, I mean, they love our culture. And y'all tell the stories. So be like Furman Bisher, man, at 95, still making deadlines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, how many people get to do what we do? How many people get to do what we do, to go out and go to games and talk to people, be from here to, my TV over here, 10 feet away from Sonny Dykes, and asking him questions about, his family or talking about whatever he wants to talk about. And it really, I see it as a privilege, not a right.
Yeah. And we've run out of time. Mildred just showed me the stopwatch. Rob, bad at it time. Make me holler. But got to say this, man, both of y'all being on here, it's an honor and a privilege to have you. And all of our listeners want to thank you and our sponsors always, because just remember a couple of things I like to close every show with, because I mean it. I don't say it to be symbolic, but go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give. That's a great line. My friend Jay Evers, fraternity brother of mine from Dadeville, Alabama, who owns, he and his partner, Robert, Miss Rubens Rubs. And also, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Think about that. Let that resonate in your noodle about what we mean by that. But we are so blessed to live in the greatest country in the world, to be able to come on the air every day, talk about college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. We're a sports radio show and podcast on 6 days a week. Monday, as they say down in the Deep South, Monday through Saturday. Can we get a spelling on that? Saturday? But Monday through Saturday, 2 hours every day, www.sidelines.live. Also, 680thefan.com, the podcast park. Check out the great work, Southern Sports Today, with Chuck Oliver and Dan Matthews, and Radio Alabama Group in Sylacauga. Absolutely love it. Kicks 96.3 Alexander City, and the 750 miles of shoreline in Lake Martin. Until then, folks, God bless America. Have a great day, and we are out of here.